Good afternoon. I want to thank Stephanie and her board of directors, North Carolina Festivals and Events Association, for inviting me to come and talk to you about sponsorship. My name is Sylvia Allen. I run a company called Allen Consulting, and I'm in Homedale, New Jersey, which is down by the Jersey Shore. I've been in business for 40 years, and I was trying to think, how long have I done sponsorship? And I think I started at age 5. I must have been driving my mother crazy because she finally said, go start a theater. So that seemed like a good idea. And I rounded up the kids in the neighborhood and started a theater. I asked my dad, who had his own business, if he'd be a sponsor. And he was a sponsor and he made up little business cards. And I've been doing it ever since. As I've done it, the field has changed. If you've been in it for a while, you know it's changed. And it keeps changing. And of course, now we are at where it has really changed with the COVID virus. So I'm going to walk through some things, inventory lists, what we can do and what we can't do, uh, how to continue what we're doing post COVID, because we're not dead. It's just slowed down. So stay with me. The technology is not my strength, but we're just going to make it work. Oh, son of a gun. There it is. It did it. Okay. So, sponsorship post COVID. And this is such a cute Winnie the Pooh thing. You can't stay in your corner of the forest waiting for others to come to you. You have to go to them sometimes. Hmm, that's what we have to do is go to them. And then this is just a reminder that sponsorship is an investment in cash or in kind in return for access to exploitable business potential associated with an event or highly publicized entity. Investment implies they're getting something back. Don't ever talk, you're going to pay me. Never talk about your cash or you're going to give me a check. It's an investment. And then access to exploitable, that means how are they going to capitalize on it? If you've got a car dealer, is he going to cross promote that he's partnering with you on a real event or on a virtual event, whatever it is? But it's how they're going to capitalize on it. So I'm going to ask you a question. Can you remember where you were when 9/11 happened? I know I can because obviously I'm 50 miles from New York City. Yes, water separates me, but my daughter's a fashion designer and she works in New York. So 8:30, I picked up the phone and called her. I said, and she's yelling at me, I'm late, I'm late. I said, you're not going anywhere. Yeah, I said, you stay home. And then I called my son who worked at in Jersey City, which is just right across the river, but they had already called him and said, stay home. So thank heaven that happened because if my kids had been in New York, I'd have been a basket case. And interestingly, what happens on something like that, I was getting ready to go hand out flyers for a bike tour that was going to be in Atlantic Highlands, which is on the shore there, was a triage center. And one of the people who worked for me said, what are you doing? It's not, the Twin Towers are going down. Nobody's going to care about the bike tour. And I had to go, whoa, pull on the brakes. Then can you remember where you were when the COVID virus was announced? That was middle of March, right? You go, okay, this will go away. And I'm sure you had events planned. I had one planned for first weekend in May, and then another one in October, sorry, May and October, but then I had a 4th of July event. Well, if you've got a May event and it's middle of March, you can't go after sponsors right now. You can't tie your last minute pieces up with vendors and get your liquor license and all of that. So I postponed it. And I just postponed it for a couple of months and I had to call all the vendors, had to call all the sponsors, had to call all your commercial people. And shortly after that, I met with the town. I said, we've got to do something about this. They said, well, do it in September. By then, everything will be fine. So we scheduled that for September. The 4th of July event is called off totally because we get 250,000 people in one day on the boardwalk in the Jersey Shore. And then it comes to August. And I said, again, I told the client, we got to cancel this. You can't do the September event. I don't know how to social distance at a wine festival because they love to cluster around. So we postponed it until next year. And then my October 3rd event, we postponed till next year. So if you're waiting for the new normal, you may be missing opportunities. If you keep waiting for it to happen like it used to, it's not going to. But if you remember that sponsors need you as much as you need them, it gives you the strength to go out there and do that. I have a client, the historic village at Allaire, wonderful early 1800s village. They finally got some events up and running. And I'm just calling the low end people. They're all saying, oh, thank heaven. We have been so sad about nothing happening all summer. We're so glad to be able to get back to work. And here's what happened. I mean, it was easy, right? What we used to do. I love the 3 C's, complacency, comfort, and confidence. It was easy and you knew what to do. Last quarter of the year, 50% of the money is allocated for sponsorship. I'm going to go out after that money. I'm going to start going after my vendors. I'm going to start going after the commercial people. And so we just kicked into gear. Well, that isn't happening now. And I'm going to give you an example of a young man by the name of Howie Freeman. He started the Quick Check Festival of Ballooning 37 years ago. So Quick Check is a sponsor for 37 years. And for those of you not familiar, Quick Check is like a Wawa, a 7-Eleven, any of the gas and go places. So he had Quick Check called him in December and said, we've changed our marketing strategy. We're not doing it next year. Now, you know what that's like. I mean, that is what? You're stopping my heart. You're not going to come back. So luckily, he knew the president of Quick Check, and that man worked with him, and working together, they got the New Jersey Lottery to be a sponsor. So it's the New Jersey Lottery Balloon Festival because it's their 50th anniversary. And he got that end of February. Talk about playing it close, right? Wham, here comes the COVID. Now his event was planned for July. We scoot along, and all of a sudden, no, now we have to reschedule to October. Well, how do you give your sponsor value? First place, he's buddy with Quick Check president. He got New Jersey Lottery and all 7,400 Quick Checks. Secondly, he has a 90,000 name database that he can mail to. And you know, the lotteries always have different offers. So he could mail once a week, 90,000 names for the lottery. So as a result, the lottery got value from their sponsorship without the event. And of course, come August 1, they've rescheduled it for next year. But he's very smart and he had tons of ideas and he made everything work. So now I want to talk about doing the asset discussion for tangible. And here comes the fun part. I have to find that other thing which is supposed to be hiding at the bottom, and it's not. So we're going to do this. I will find it, bring it up. Sorry, but this is just the way it is. And okay, doing that the wrong way. Sorry, Carol. I have this marvelous lady helping me. So it's just a godsend. She made sure this is better. So we're going to talk about all the assets. And what I did, I just made up a list of all of the assets that we could have, you know, for an event. And what is pre-COVID and what's post-COVID. And the reality is everything's pre-COVID, right? You can do all of these things. And I'm sure that you have things too that you do in your different events. But I thought I'd just start with a basic list. Now, post-COVID, we have to think about this. All right. Post-COVID, I would say no banners. I'm going to do this right, Carol. There we go. Uh, but radio and TV and print, very important, especially radio. Sponsors, the top two things that sponsors want are on-site signage and radio. So if you've had my seminars, you know how to barter. For radio, you get X number of spots and you give them X number of exposures through the variety of things that you do. So they become a listed sponsor and they get value from that. And the same way with cable TV and the same way with newspapers. Newspapers desperately need you too. Table tents, no way. We're not going to do table tents. On-site signage, we don't have a site that we're doing, right? Posters, flyers, and banners. I don't think so. Especially, we're still going to be doing virtual events or very limited events. If we're doing limited events, small numbers, then you can do posters and flyers. But I think it's secondary to some of the other things that we can offer them. Program book, not going to do that. I know you guys like to do program books. Come on, Sylvia, you lost your place. Brochures, maybe, maybe not. Billboards, I love billboards, and your sponsors love billboards. So if you can arrange to get a billboard and get your sponsors onto that, and you can call the Outdoor Billboard Association and ask them, what kind of exposure does this get? A billboard sometimes gets hundreds of thousands of people going by, and yes, it's only worth about $1.50 cost per thousand, but it's hundreds of thousands. So it's that ongoing exposure. Tickets, we don't have tickets. We don't have payroll stuffers. We don't have VIP viewing and parking. No, I don't think so. But we do have mailing lists. Again, here's where I'm a fanatic on mailing lists. You can capitalize on that. Maybe use your mailing list to develop a newsletter for your sponsor. Maybe you can market some of their products through your mailing list. Maybe we could have an incentive for helping grow the mailing list. But think about it, you need to have that. On-site sampling, absolutely not. Audio announcements, duh, you're not doing that because we don't have a stage. Product displays, signage, hospitality. If we're doing some virtual stuff, maybe there are some hospitality opportunities, but I would say they're quite limited. So yes, I have it marked, but the reality is it is limited. Okay. On stage, no. Cross promotions, yes. You can do cross promotions. Get your sponsors together. Have something called a sponsor summit where they share their ideas of what they're doing. And so all of a sudden they begin to see, wait a minute, maybe I could work with this one or that. And what I do with Sponsor Summit, I put half the people on one side of the table, half on the other, and I do like sponsorship dating. 3 minutes on each side. This guy talks, this woman talks, they trade cards, and they can begin to see how they can work together. And it works well. Internet, absolutely, you want to do that. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those things. If you have a celebrity, you could always use that celebrity for additional benefits for the sponsor. Let's just say it's a Verizon store for a moment, and they have 22 salespeople that work there. Verizon is a major sponsor, and one of the things is you get the celebrity to do a Zoom. You can do a Zoom training with all of those salespeople, and it's an added benefit, an added asset that has value. And then, of course, mobile. And I'm sorry, I didn't exit, but mobile is like buses, cabs, anything that drives around and a lot of people see it. And then, of course, you have to think about, is there anything else? What else do you do? And I'm sure you have other things that you do. So now we're going to look at the intangibles, because those are things that it's hard to adopt, money, measure money to it. But the reality is it means a lot too. Now, your prestige of your property, I think you're going to have that whether it's virtual or real. You've still got a wonderful property that people love. Recognition of the name, market impact, there's a way we can work on that. Community acceptance. I don't know how to measure that. I don't know how to measure that in this post-COVID time. Audience interest, yes and no. We have to think about how to make that work. Uh, compatibility, audience compatibility with sponsors. We're kind of starting over. So this is a question mark, and we want to make sure when we know what our audience is or is going to be, does it work to what the sponsor wants and needs, and is it his customer? Then category exclusivity, they love that. Protection from ambush, they love that. Protection from any kind of sponsor clutter. You know how sometimes you see a poster or flyer and it's got 100 sponsors on. Well, it doesn't do anybody any good to have that. And then the co-sponsor networking opportunities, which are really great. Again, do the sponsor summit and have them work together. And then sales opportunities limited unless you can come up with a creative idea like Howie Freeman does. Now, if you want a copy of this, all you really have to do is just send me an email and I'll be glad to send it to you. And it's just sylvia.allen@allenconsulting.com. So said she who blocked it out again, sorry. So tangible we talked about, intangibles, you know, what will work, prestige, getting rid of sponsorship clutter and everything. But sales opportunities, hard to do. Again, as I say, if you're like Howie Freeman and you come up with something like the quick check, that's great. So what are you doing right now? You should be doing the same thing you would always be doing. It's hard to not become catatonic, but you've got to still go out and find those sponsors. Start now. Remember, 50% of marketing dollars are allocated at the end of the year. Make sure you reach the decision maker. And sometimes you have to dig around, but go into their website, look and see the major names, see who the head person is, and call them. You have to have personal contact. Anytime I ever interview a sponsor, I say, what made you go with this person? Because they called me first. They talked to me. Don't send a blanket email. Sponsorship opportunity, da, 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 da. How fast can you hit delete? You also need to have company knowledge. Don't be stupid when you call on them. If they've got an area where the sales are down or an area where sales are up, either way they need you. Sales down, they need more sales. Sales up, they need to maintain their market share. And when I show you those McGraw-Hill statistics, you'll see how important that is. Obstacles, everyone's working remotely. Yes, there's a little bit of people going back, but most of them are still working remotely. And some companies are realizing, whoa, we don't need all of this commercial space. Our people can work from home. So look at their emails. They've usually got a cell phone on there. They will accept a little email because they've all got to check their emails. Hi, I need to talk to you about the Seafood Festival. May I call you? At least that you're getting a little bit of a dialogue with them, and they're going to say yes or no. Hopefully they'll say yes. And then, of course, we've just got to break through this barrier. It's not going to be easy, but you know you've got something that they need. And here's what's going to make it easier for you, because these are recession statistics. Both of these are from a Cone Communications and Echo study. 91% of global consumers are likely to switch brands to one associated with a good cause given comparable price and quality. And that ties into, if you're a 501c3, you are the good cause, right? You're doing something of value, bringing a community back to life, helping the chamber, helping the Rotary, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. If you are not a 501c3, align yourself with one. And I know some of you are C6s, which is okay, but still align yourself with a good old cause-related marketing banner and figure out who needs your help. of these organizations and what's compatible with your event. You don't want to pick something that's contradictory. And then 61% of consumers are willing to try a new brand or one they've never heard of because of its association with a particular cause. So you've got some sales tools here. And here's more. This is from a Nielsen Consumers Who Care study. Half of global consumers said they would be willing to reward companies that give back to society by paying more for their goods and services. So this, you may go to somebody and their prices are higher, still go to them because you can use this statistic, especially if you've got a cause-related marketing tie-in. Now, McGraw-Hill. Every time there's a recession, McGraw-Hill does a study of this, and here's what they found out. For those people that immediately cut their budget, here's our recession, they cut their budget, coming out, they had to spend twice as much to get to where they had been. Conversely, people who maintained their marketing, kept their message out there for the customers, came out of it with a higher market share. Remember those statistics because they're there. They studied companies, and every time there's a recession, they study companies. And then, of course, as I said, I want you to do the 501c3 partnership. That is important. So I looked up how many recession marketing articles there are. It's almost over 91 million. Obviously, you can't read all of them. But you may want to just scan some of them to see what other people are saying about the recession and about marketing during the recession. You can't just fold up your tent. Now, if your business is closed, you may have to take a break. I would still do minimal marketing to let people know I'm there, and although I'm closed, I'm still here in the community. So they have to spend something. So now I want to talk about 10 tips to improving your sponsorship sales. And the first thing is you have to hone your sales skills. You are salespeople, whether you like it or not. You are absolutely salespeople, and you want to work on being a good salesperson. And a good salesperson cares about the other person. To me, that's what I think is important. They care about the other person. And you have to care, and you have to think about them and say, how will this work for you? How can I help you? Secondly, understand your property. Understand what you've got. What is the value to it? Will it help them get over a negative influence? Will it help them reach a new market? What will it help them do? Because you're really an extension of their marketing arm. And then, of course, that means understand your sponsor's property and when they do their budgeting. And I've had people say, well, I don't know when they do their budgeting. Call them and ask them. Majority of companies usually do, as I said before, near the end of the year, 50% of marketing dollars or sponsorship dollars are allocated this last quarter. But find out from them. Number 4, recognize and understand the value of your offerings. You are giving them a marketing tool that they need. Okay, maybe your sponsor has radio, maybe your sponsor has internet, maybe they have newspaper, but they don't have the total marketing surround that you've got. And what you're bringing is the additional value of association with what it is you've done. You do have to be prepared to customize. Those of you that have my seminars know I hate gold, silver, and bronze. I absolutely hate fixed dollars. That's why that asset inventory sheet is so great, because you can say, here's what we've got. Tell me what you'd like. And I'm going to give you an example. I was doing sponsorship for a printing company, and it was an association. And a very good friend was the vice president, and he was always complaining. This idiot that works in Washington doesn't know what he's doing. Wah, 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 wah. And I said, okay, what account are you trying to get? So he told me the guys what the business was. I said, okay, give it to me. He said, no, I don't want to buy. I said, give it to me. So he gave it to me, and I called the guy. And I'm in New Jersey. This guy's in California. And I called him and I said, this is your lucky day. Now you need to know his background. The guy that was trying to sell him had a fixed package called gold for $10,000. So keep that in your mind. So I called him and I said, it's your lucky day. You don't have to deal with that guy, and you get to deal with me, and you get to customize what you want. Now, you want to be associated with this printing association because they are your potential customers. I'm going to email to you right now an asset inventory sheet, and we're going to talk about all of these things. And then you're going to decide what you want after we talk about all of the pieces, and then we're going to figure out what your investment can be, and then I'll try to get approval for it. So we went through this whole thing. It was, an article in a magazine, article on the website, presence at a couple trade shows. Anyway, he picked out what he wanted. And then I said to him, okay, what is your budget? He said, I can spend $15,000 to $20,000. It's already more than that other person was asking him for. So I hung up and I called my client and I said, I think we should go 19,875. He said, whatever you want, I knew what the value was because I'd figured out all the values of the pieces. So I called the guy back. I said, I saved you $125. It's 19,875. He said, get me a contract. Now, the following year, he called me. He said, it's time to renew, move it up to 25,000. And the following year, he said, move it up to 32,000. So I had established with him, you're in charge of picking what you want. And I talked to him every month to make sure that he got all the value that he had agreed to. And I did a post-event report on the 19,875. I said, it looks like it's around 45,000. And he said, you're wrong. You know how your heart sinks? He said, it's worth 60,000. Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. So be prepared to customize, be willing to negotiate, be creative, for heaven's sakes. Help them see ways to make it work. Help them see ways that it can make a difference. Again, I'll tell you about a BMW thing with my wine festivals. They wanted to do wine tastings at all of their dealerships. Well, of course, we're virtual. So we picked a winery. They let the winery pick one red and one white that they thought was really great. And then each dealership would have their own wine tasting because the agency bought all of those dealers red and a white. They also had, their own wine glasses, BMW from red and a white. And then the wine guy did a whole wine tasting. They did it at their shop. And then the other thing was every bottle of wine that this winery sold had a hang tag on it that said, bring this to your local BMW dealer and do a test drive. So it worked out really well that everybody was happy. You do have to overcome objections. Sorry, I have no money. And I go, well, neither do I. So we're even. Don't let money become an issue because it's easy for them to throw up that smoke screen. Don't do it. Just deal with the objections. If it's something you're not quite sure of, say you probably have a good reason for saying that. May I ask what it is? Take time to think. And then make fulfillment easy. You've got to have it easy. When I was working with this guy in California, once a month, I spent 2 hours on the phone with him with our checklist. And I said, wait a minute, you have to still deliver your article to me. I'm going to proofread it to make sure it's not overly salesy before I send it off to the client. And as a result, as you know, he renewed and he renewed. And then, of course, you have to follow through. Don't promise to do something if you don't intend to do it, because they always remember that. I feel very lucky that I have had some sponsors with me for years because I make it easy for them and I follow through with them. I make sure that they know what's happening, where we're going, what we're doing. If there are problems, I'm very careful about that. You know that too. Run into problems, make sure they're the first ones to know. So You remember to have fun and care about the other person. It succeeds every time. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the historic village at Allaire. I live in a house built in 1720, pre-revolutionary, so I love anything that's historic. And this is an iron foundry community from the early 1800s. They've never had sponsors, never. And yet they get 250,000 people in a year. So I had put together what I thought was a phenomenal opportunity, again, the asset inventory list, and had begun calling on people in January and February because they didn't hire me till January. Then, of course, everything came to a halt. I've kept in contact with all of those people. So when we opened up, and we opened up Allaire 2 months ago, I was able to go back to them and say, I've got good news. We're up and running. We had to control. We had to do social special distancing and face masks and all of that. But because I had kept in touch with them, I didn't go into my little cave. They were happy and they're thrilled that finally we're back to life. So with that, this is how to reach me. You can always call me, cell, regular phone. If you want to buy my book, it is $60. It's How to Be Successful at Sponsorship Sales. God forbid